Hello and welcome back to the WNBL Weekly Wrap. My name is Alex Catalano and I'm once again joined by Kristen Sims to go through all the big talking points out of round two. Kristen, another great weekend of hoops.
Oh, another very exciting weekend of basketball. It was really, really good. We saw some tight contests, which was pretty exciting.
We did. There were some bloody tight games this week, and I can't help but feel horrible for Adelaide Lightning fans who've had to suffer through another two games of under 10-point losses. I can't imagine like going through that right now. I feel like they're going to get there eventually, but geez, it's frustrating.
Yeah, they've done like pretty well to stick in it and get close, but just not doing enough to hold on right at the end. And I can imagine for all Lightning fans, there'd be a bit of frustration around at the moment.
Absolutely. We'll kick it off with the Wednesday night hoops on over at the State Basketball Centre. I went to this one. This is a game I covered during the week. The Southside Flyers and the Melbourne Boomers for the first edition of the Michelle Timms Cup. And it was the Flyers who got the win, Kristen. Watching that game, I couldn't help but think that this Flyers team looks like it's got the potential to be one of the best defensive teams of the season. I thought the job they did after the Boomers scored 100 plus points a week before against the Lynx was pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely shut them down. I was expecting a pretty high scoring game again, but full credit to the Flyers. They knew exactly what to do and how to apply the pressure and keep those big shooting names in the Boomers team quiet.
Yeah, Christy Wallace was definitely one of them. She did find her points, but I thought just the way that Amy Roche and Maddie Roche was the one that set the tone, really. She was annoying her to the point where it didn't look like she could take possession without fouling at some points. Christy, she still ended up with a double-double, 15 points and 10 rebounds, but they definitely didn't make life easy for her. It was only her and Tiff Mitchell that managed to score over 10 points in this game. So I think that the Flyers can absolutely take their hats off to that. But I know you thought as well, Kristen, watching this game, that it was only 67 points, but the Flyers really took the most of their opportunities when it came to their offense in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. They were just able to find space and get the ball to score in any part of their offense. And one thing I was really impressed with was the way that they were running the ball down the court. They didn't slow down. If they had an opportunity to move the ball and get it straight in through a layup or whatever, they were taking that opportunity and they
Yeah.
weren't letting the Boomers catch up and slow the play down. So I think that's sort of where they won the game is they dictated it on their terms that way.
Yeah, definitely. You could see that the pace was definitely not going the Boomers' way in this one. They got in a couple of runs here and there, but I thought start to finish it was fully Flyers dominant. But I guess it does raise the question of whether the Boomers have got enough outside of their offense. We know that scoring group is so stacked. Chrissy Wallace, Tiff Mitchell are going to be putting up big points every week. Kayla George always contributes. And they've shown plenty of promise with Mia Murray hitting those long threes when they need her to. But is it a bit one-dimensional, I suppose? Could that be one of the worries of the Boomers this season?
I think so. Obviously it's a very different Flyers outlook to what, we saw last year. But, with the Boomers being last year's champions, you would have expected them to, probably come out a bit closer and keep that game up that we've seen from them so far this year. I mean, with the names that they have on the score sheet, it's pretty easy to see why they would want to rely on that. But you're
Yeah.
probably not going to win a championship if you're not focusing on your defense as well. There's two ends to the court, and I think they probably need to start focusing and pick that up because the Flyers definitely exposed them and took advantage of that, and came out with a win.
Yeah, I think part of it will definitely come as they keep building chemistry. I thought in this one, I spoke about the chemistry between Kayla George and Olivia Nelson-Ododa last week, and it wasn't quite at the same level in this game. Penny and Davison spent a fair bit of time on court because Nelson-Ododa failed out, and obviously that's not ideal, considering that you want those players to be on court together as much as possible in the early part of the season. I thought she bounced back well, Nelson-Ododa in the second game of the Boomers weekend, but something to watch, I think, with their defense under the post, especially with those two together. The second game of the round, Townsville Fire and the Adelaide Lightning. Like I mentioned, the heartbreaking one once again for Lightning fans. Only 5 points in this one, but the Fire, we said it last week, Kristen, that they always are slightly underrated. It was another good win for them this week in a game where it came down to the wire. And a huge part of that for mine was Tiana Hawkins. The question I want to ask is she the best import of this season?
I'm thinking that she's definitely starting that way. If she can continue these performances, then absolutely, she's going to be trouble for every team that comes up against her. They played 3 games now, so at 24 points per game, you've got a pretty good indication of what she can do and what she will be able to produce for the Fire if no one really tightens up on her. She's using that WNBA experience to her advantage, and it's really bolstering their offense.
Yeah, averaging a double-double as well with her rebounds too, which is just I know it's only been, a few games like we said, but it's Annalie Maley type numbers, and I think they're the only ones, or one of only 3 who are averaging a double-double to start the season so far. So it's a great company to have her in nice and early. I think we talked about the offense, and so much of that has been run through Lauren Mansfield for Adelaide. Kristen, they have struggled probably at times to close out games, but Mansfield looked like she could have won them the game in this one. Those 4 threes in the last quarter. She looks like she's been really important so far for them this season.
Yeah, she's definitely, I think, settled in really well. Obviously, there's some really good chemistry there, and she's feeling really comfortable. And you can see that she's really bringing a lot to the team. And I think it's just that experience that she brings as well, and it settles some of the other girls on the court. And with the other names again that the Lightning have, you've got Ball Ace that's popped up, and you've got Talbot. It allows her to kind of get free, I think. And while the other team's focusing on them, she's got some space. And if they can utilize that a lot more, I think we might see coming out with a couple.
Yeah, well, hopefully the penny will drop for the Lightning soon, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. The next game up, Bendigo Spirit and the Sydney Flames. First game we got to see of the Flames this year, Kristen. It was a pretty, not ugly loss, but the scoreline certainly didn't flatter them, which, I thought the final quarter really it blew out. They kept with the Spirit for most of this game, gave up a couple of runs, but I think at the end of the day, their defense was what really let them down, especially late.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as we know, it was, only a couple of hours, I think, before game day, we found out that they had lost Kalani Purcell for the whole season. She's not playing for personal reasons. And I think that really hurt them a lot. She's their key defense player. And missing her on the court hurt their defensive structure. And it certainly exposed that they were really undersized, and it made it quite easy for the Spirit to play the game that they wanted to play.
Yeah, you could definitely see that with Kelsey Griffin and Annalie Maley both really getting off the chain in this one. They're a great combo, and I think the freedom that Maley's been given with the more players coming into the side to play a couple of those roles that, maybe she was playing 2 or 3 different roles at times throughout last season, but now she's sort of got the freedom she can play as a true center if she needs to. She can sit on the outside and just shoot threes if she needs to. She doesn't really have to do it all. I thought that was what I really took away from the Spirits game this weekend.
Duo last weekend, but seeing what they've been able to do again this week, it makes Annalie's life so much easier. She pretty much did have the team on her back last year. And I think we all knew that she was going to take it up a notch, with her time in the WNBA and the Opals camps and playing for the Opals. But I don't think we really thought that she would be able to do as much as she has so far this season. She's definitely shooting better from, long range, and that confidence is I think allowing her to take more shots. And just having Kelsey Griffin there shows you exactly just what the Spirit needed last year, was just that little bit more experience and level head. She's always on the court moving and thinking, and the aggression that you have from both of them as players is just terrifying for the other teams.
Yeah, terrifying is right. And like we said in the first sort of wrap, I think we both predicted the Spirit to be a finals team, and I think they can make a charge for those top two spots. The way they've been playing at the moment, I think they've got a very, very balanced roster. I spoke about Abby Warong as well last week, but the way that she just moves the ball across this team, 6 assists again in this game, only the 6 points, so a bit more of a quiet scoring night, but I was so impressed by her play once again. I think she's going to be one of those just quiet breakout stars across this season that really takes the game up to another level. And that's what the Spirit need. These players are all going up a gear, along with the players that have returned, and it's holding them in very, very good stead. The next game of the weekend on the Saturday night, we saw the Perth Lynx take on the UC Caps. First win of the season for the Lynx, Kristen. I think we got to see a little bit more of what they can actually show on offense. Obviously, the Caps are really struggling with injuries at the moment. They've got two of their starters already out this season. But I thought looking at the Lynx offensive game, they've really got something going with their long range game. And that was certainly driven through Amy Atwell, who had a brilliant performance in this one.
Oh, yeah, she was really, really great. I think you can see, as I think we said last week as well, as she gets more comfortable, we'll start to see her more pop up on the stat sheet and the highlight reels. And because her long range shooting is her number one weapon, it always has been. So if we start seeing that, we'll see more points on the board for the Lynx for sure. But their assist and team game in attack is definitely something that's, I think, going to get them a lot of wins. Because they just have so many options, and the way that Lauren Scherf is finding Amy Atwell and Chloe Bibby is just massive for them. She has a really good ability to pick one of them, and they're always in the best spot. So you add Sammy Whitcomb into that, and look at what happened in that game. Everyone was hot, and they just, they had a great day.
I thought it was a good sign that, Whitcomb was the third highest scorer in this game. We spoke a lot about after the Lynx's first couple of matches that they were probably trying to run their offense too much through her, but they're finding a bit more of that balance now. Chloe Bibby had 20 field goal attempts for 20 points. She probably would have liked to clean up her shooting a little bit more, only 45 from the field. But the fact that they are, like you said, using so much more of the offense and spreading it out a bit more and getting the ball in everybody's hands, I think it's going to hold them in such better stead than how they looked to start off. I guess my question mark will be seeing them do it against one of the stronger teams, because unfortunately the Caps, Kristen, like we said, they're really struggling to get going this season. It certainly didn't help that they're missing starters, but with Veely still being a new coach as well, it's really sort of the perfect storm to just make it a bit of a struggle for their first few weeks.
Oh, absolutely. We all know it's hard to stop an offense that runs like that, but it was pretty evident, I think, that there was no communication for the Caps in defense. We did hear Kristen Veal talk about it during the game, saying, I want to hear the communication. Let's bring it up. But they just left the Lynx wide open to shoot off the perimeter. The amount of shots that Atwell and Whitcomb were taking where they had absolutely no one near them. Like they had the whole 3-point perimeter was just theirs. They just owned it, and they were taking shots under no pressure at all. So you can't really expect to stay close with teams if you're not going to run any kind of pressure in your defense. And, even without Jade Melbourne's leadership and voice, I think they should have enough people there that they should be able to get something better moving in defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is something they really need to sharpen up on very, very quickly, is that perimeter defense. I thought inside the paint they were okay defensively. I thought Takea Cohen has showed a fair bit in her first few weeks with the Caps, and she was really good, I thought. 9 rebounds in this one, but also 17 points. So I think they've got something there, but you're right, they do need to tighten up that structure around the arc if they're going to be doing any sort of damage over the next few weeks, because it might get ugly if they don't get a win soon. But it's only upwards from here for the Caps, I think, is the positive, that you can't get any worse probably from here, because they've already had the horror start they could have possibly had. Sunday, the game over at Parkville, Melbourne Boomers' first home game of the season. They took down the Adelaide Lightning. We spoke a bit on the Lightning before, Kristen, but once again, third game in a row to start their season where they lost by under 10 points. Looks like multiple points in this game. They could have won it. They were leading at multiple points. Even in the third quarter, they were up for a good few minutes. What do you think they need to do to make the penny drop from here? Because it's not going to be easy to get your first win when you're giving up leads and not able to close out games. How do they make it happen?
I think one of their biggest areas would be tightening up on their defense. They are conceding a lot of points for the amount of points that they're scoring. So they're not really stopping the teams on the other end, and they're just not really able to get a consistent 4 quarters. They get a good run on, but then they kind of fall off down the other end, and the other team comes back, and they're just not really being able to stick, I think, to whatever plan that Nat's putting out there at the moment. So once that sort of, I think, comes together, we'll see some different games from them. But they are still, a team that hasn't really been together all that long. Their imports didn't come in until pretty close before preseason. Steph was off with the Opals. So they're probably still working on some chemistry there as well. And like I said, I think once that clicks, we'll see some different results for them.
Yeah, the worry will be now without Steph Talbot as well, potentially. We don't know the extent of her injury yet, but she was off the court for the last 5 minutes or so of the last quarter. Do you think that makes it even harder to get their first win from here?
I think so, because when you look at their stats, they are relying on her more than anyone else. They're feeding the ball to Steph more than anyone else on the court. It did look like they were doing it a bit more with Jacinta Munro on the weekend, and obviously with Izzy Borlace. But I would like to see them use Marina Whittle just a little bit more, because she is a dangerous player. And I don't think they're quite utilizing her enough at the moment.
Yeah, only the 9 shots and 2 shots from the line as well for Marina Wheel for 13 points, shooting at 66% from the field. You would think you would want to get the ball in her hands a bit more. And I agree. I think that's part of what they need to do is get these players across the group involved. And ball A's will obviously be a big part of that offense. I am super, super high on what this kid has been doing to start the season so far. For mine, she's on track for the youth player of the season. I don't know what your thoughts are, Kristen. It's only been 2 rounds, but I'm not seeing many other players eligible doing what she's doing right now. She literally nearly put the team on her back to end this game when Talbot went off.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there, Alex. I haven't seen any of the other junior players that are really being talked about the way that Izzy is. And, I think she's got her spot in that team now, and she's not going to let that go at all. So I expect to see consistent performances from her as the year goes on.
She's just so dangerous. Like watching her get inside the paint every time she's getting down to the rack, she looks like she's going to score. It's very, very scary. And I think teams should definitely be watching out for her, especially if she's going to be the main one getting the ball in her hands to shoot with Talbot out for the time being. Just looking at the weekend as well, Kristen, we spoke a bit about the broadcast last week. I wanted to get your thoughts on how you thought it sort of tracked this week. I thought technically wise, I thought they were a fair bit better. The new scorecards certainly look a lot better, and I didn't see as many issues with those. I think they're starting to get on the right track.
Yeah, it was definitely better. I still think there is room for improvement. There was still a few technical issues, but realistically, anything was better than the first week.
Yeah, no, it wasn't hard to be better than that. Now they're getting there, and I think it's good to see they actually are trying to make improvements, which is what we wanted to see. And as well on the weekend, the Boomers, they love to call their home the Boom Box at Parkville, and they managed to get a sold out crowd this week, Kristen. How good is that for the WNBL starting in just round 2?
Yeah, just round 2, and we had a sellout crowd of, I think that's over 3,000 people there. So it's good for basketball. It's good for the Boomers. That makes anybody traveling there. It's a hard place to go because you got fans and they're screaming, and that builds great atmosphere. So if that starts to build there, let's hope that it starts to filter through to some of the other stadiums, and we see more bums in seats.
The state basketball center was probably 75% full for the game that I covered on the weekend. And I've always thought WNBL games, they punch above their weight in terms of atmosphere. The fans go absolutely crazy throughout games to really make it feel like there's probably a couple thousand people more there than there is. So I think it's a great start attendance-wise to this season, and keep it up, I say, keep coming along, and keep making atmospheres like there was on Sunday night. Absolutely. We'll take a little look at the Aussies overseas. Kristen, Ezzy Magbagor had a huge game over in Europe in the Euro League, playing for her team, Sopron Basket. These European teams, I got no idea whether I'm actually saying them correctly or not. But she came up against Darcy Garvin's DVTK Hun term. There you go. There's another one. She absolutely dominated.
Yeah, just like we're used to seeing from Ezzy, she had a massive game, 18 points and 8 rebounds, and topping it off with 2 steals and 2 assists. Like, I think we all know what Ezzy's capable of when she gets her shooting going, and let's hope we see a few more from her like that this season.
77% from the field as well. So she was definitely converting those opportunities when she got them. Good to see as well. She's playing on the same team as Britt Sykes. Wouldn't the Caps love having her back at the moment? She had a pretty good game as well.
Yeah, the poor Caps. She was really good for them last year, and I'm sure they'll be watching her going, please come back.
They might need to look at another import possibly throughout the year if they can't get anything going. I don't know. I think they
Yeah.
might have filled out all their import slots though, the Caps. So might just be getting rough from here. I think that's going to be all from us this week on the WNBL Weekly Wrap. Make sure you stick around and make sure you head over to theinnersanctum.com.au for our articles weekly on WNBL. We've got our journalists reporting on games. We'll hopefully be getting interviews starting soon. Looking like we may have someone from the Sydney Flames lined up for next week, which is very exciting. First guest on the show. So stay tuned for that. And until next week, Kristen, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me again. Bye.
Make sure you tune in next week. WNBL Weekly Wrap on the Inner Sanctum.